Hi, I'm Paul Niven, co-author of Objectives and Key Results, Driving Focus, Alignment, and Engagement with OKRs, and several other books on strategy and strategy execution. Joined today with my friend, Zach Ross. Hi, Zach.
Hi, Paul. Thanks for having me here. Yeah, as Paul mentioned, my name is Zachary Ross. I'm currently a technical program manager at Google, and before that, I was in a similar role at Amazon, and then I worked previously at AT&T and several startups.
Great. So in this series of videos, Zach and I are talking OKRs, and today we're reaching into the old listener mailbag.
That's
Zach.
right. That's right.
As a consultant, I get asked a lot of questions, and I know, Zach, in your role at Google, of course, you get asked a lot of questions. So we've picked some today that we're going to talk about. In our next video, we'll tackle some questions as well. So I'm going to start off today. We've got our list right here.
I'm
so
ready.
you all set? All right. So this is one I think is very important. I think it'll resonate with all of you watching this today because it happens with every company. So you launch an OKRs program, you're excited, but you have skeptics. You know, sometimes people are very skeptical. So Zach, the question is, how do you get skeptics on board with OKRs?
It's a good question, and even at Google, where we're bought in on OKR methodology, sometimes we have new folks that join and they don't understand. Why do we have to do this? It seems like an extra task or a tax on top of this, and really. Part of the convincing, if you will, is to show the true value of OKRs. That I think we can all appreciate the fact that not being focused, not having a clear plan, lack of clarity causes problems for individual, for teams, and for organizations. So really, the way to get those skeptics to come on over is to show them the value proposition here, that this is really going to help you be more productive, more efficient, and it's going to drive alignment across the organization because everyone wants to know that what they're doing matters to the company.
Absolutely.
And OKRs are a great way of doing that. And I know you've done a lot of consulting, and I'm sure you've seen this at many companies as well.
Right. Yeah, and one other thing I know when I see skeptics, it's you can't really argue with the common sense nature of something like this. Choose an objective, measure whether you've achieved it. I don't know why you would argue with that, but when I dig a little deeper with skeptics, it's typically they've been burned with some sort of poor implementation. Yeah. And if you dig a little deeper from that, it's often one of the biggest problems is there's no executive sponsorship.
Yeah,
right. So
that's
nobody owns the program. So I think that's that's one of the biggest problems too. But we can get skeptics on board. And the beauty of that is it's like anything. When you have a reformed smoker or a reformed this, aren't they always the biggest advocates
for
things?
Once they understand, once they've bought in, they're your biggest advocates.
Exactly, that's right. So there's a real upside to this. So, Zach?
All right, let's go into the bag of questions again. All right, Paul. Do you have to have a strategy in place to create OKRs?
All right, so I'm going to back up with that one first. When executives around the world are asked about their number one challenge, what is the biggest challenge they face? It's almost always and exclusively strategy execution, right?
Yep.
We hear that again and again and again. That organizations, the biggest challenge they face is the inability to execute. So you ask yourself, why is that? And I know in my experience as a consultant, often it's because they don't really have a strategy in place. There's nothing to execute, right? I see that again and again. Some organizations will have a nice long list of tactics, or some will have more of a vision or a mission, something that really describes their core purpose. But they don't have something that really shows how they differentiate or shows their true value proposition. So I think, being slightly tangential here, Zach, a lot of organizations don't really have a strategy. But to answer this question specifically, well, yes, you should have a strategy in place because for context, we want our OKRs to be linked back to a strategy so they demonstrate that business value, right?
Well, exactly. And anyone can be busy. And OKRs, can be busy work unless it is linked to strategy. Like, why are you trying to achieve these objectives?
Right.
And at the same token, you may have a strategy, but if you're not executing, that's a problem as well. So I think you really have to have both to be successful.
Exactly, yeah. And I think that links back to our previous question about the skeptics, too. That's another reason they're skeptical, because they don't really know the strategy. So yet another reason to have a strategy.
Exactly.
All right.
Exactly.
Next question?
Yes,
I'm
ready.
I'm going to ask Zach another question here. We'll see if we can stump him. All right, so Zach, you come from Google. A lot of engineers there. And we're not picking on engineers here. It could be a different noun, but I'm going to use this noun. I'm an engineer. I just want to code. Why do I have to worry about adding business value? And again, it could be any other noun, not just engineer. But some people just let me do my job. Why do I have to focus on adding business value?
Well, I think the simple answer is anybody in a company, every individual in a company needs to be worried about business value, or ought to be thinking about how is the work that I'm doing bubble up into the overall objectives of the company. Because otherwise, you're not going to be bought into, why you're working on something and providing that value. So even for in my case, for many of the engineers I work with, they need to understand that what they're working on is meeting real customer value and also business value for Google. And we certainly try to not stop, but we try to encourage our engineers to pop up from what they're doing, because we want them working very hard on their problems, but they need to understand what they're working on. And it's amazing, once they get it, once they understand, oh, now I'm working with this system or this team, their productivity actually goes up, because they're not, they see the alignment and they're not wasting time on things that may not be as valuable or productive to the team as if they kept their head down.
Good. Again, we talked earlier in another video about employee engagement, and if you can see how you're contributing to overall results, again, you're more engaged with your work. It just makes sense.
Well, why wouldn't you want to know how your work contributes to everyone else's work? You're better as a whole than you are by yourself.
Absolutely. Okay, one more question for this round, Zach.
Okay, well, this has a little bit to do with our cadence talk from earlier. Okay. But so, Paul, is it okay to change OKRs during the quarter?
Right. Okay. So this is a question that we get a lot as well, right? And so I think it depends. I sound like a real consultant there, right? The classic consultant answer. And for example, I was working with a government entity when Hurricane Sandy hit several years ago, and we had just developed a lot of goals and objectives. And after the hurricane hit, well, everything changed, right? So of course things had to change then. And I think in cases like that, obviously that's going to occur. Or if there's some major strategic pivot happening, or if a major customer leaves you, there are circumstances in which it's okay to change the OKRs. I think what you can't do is if it's too difficult, or if you just don't like it, right? you can't change it for that reason. There's got to be obviously a strong, compelling business reason to change your OKR. Would you agree, or what's been your experience?
Completely agree, because when it is hard, that's when you don't want to change it, because you set it for a reason. Right. And OKRs are exactly that. They're an objective that you're trying to achieve. Now, there's always an exception to the rule, as you mentioned. Sometimes you do have to change, but for us, at least at Google, we try to get to the end of the quarter, and if we really feel like that gives us enough time to confirm or deny that something's a good idea, and then we'll pivot. Right. If you want to pivot, try to wait till the end of whatever cadence you come up with. 90 days is generally the best practice, and then you can make that adjustment. But if you're adjusting all the time, then I think you're going to find yourself churning a little bit too much.
Agreed. Good. Well, those are some commonly asked questions about OKRs, and in a future episode, a future video, we'll answer some more questions. And if you have a question about OKRs that you'd like us to answer, please feel free to email it, and you can reach us through our website at www.okrstraining.com. Zach, thanks very much.
Thanks, Paul.
All right, thanks all of you for watching.